it for perpetuity. Those of you that have been on to some of our previous behind the scenes tastings or any of our other classes may have never seen me not wearing an Antonelli's cheese shirt. This is very rare. I get the opportunity to put on a piece of clothing that is ridiculously important in my life, like this Rogue Creamery shirt. And I will be, I'm their spokesperson for the evening. I love them, they're amazing. And I'll be doing costume changes all through the night. That's a whole nother story, which I'll get into later in the evening. But knowing that David has to get somewhere, I would like to introduce David Gremmels. He is one of the most amazing people in my life, in my world, an inspiration early in my career. He was the president of the American Cheese Society that first year that I was volunteering, and helped guide me, mentor me, and give me, some great energy along the way, some crystal energy, some other positive energy, just to keep going and winning and succeeding and living and loving. And so I'm not going to take long. He is amazing. I'll talk about him all night. But David, welcome. Thank you for being a part of this experience tonight. And thank you for taking a few minutes just to say hello.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for being a part of the Rogue Creamery family. We love you and Kendall and your children and your entire team there. So special in our hearts. We really appreciate your work in Austin, being the ambassador, the voice for American artisan cheese. And here we are, the 9th day in American Cheese Month, celebrating American cheese. So we're so excited to be participating in this event with all of you today. And I see some familiar faces on the screen, so welcome. And it's so great. And, I just wanted to add, I met John as he was a volunteer checking in cheeses for the American Cheese Society judging and competition. And he quickly set pace to not only open a phenomenal cheese shop and experience, but also to become the American Cheese Society's president. So, and a certified cheese professional. So both John and Tom, who you'll meet this evening, are both certified cheese professionals. And you'll also be meeting Zach Rose.
I unmuted it.
To the Rogue Creamery Dairy, so you'll get a sense of place. So I'm really excited for you to participate in tasting with John and Tom and Zach this evening. And so to give you a sense of place of where we are and showcase our personality and the passion that is so much a part of Rogue Creamery. Rogue Creamery is Oregon's first certified B Corporation. That's a socially responsible company using cheese as a force of good. So B Corps are businesses that use business as a force of good to make a positive impact socially and environmentally. And we are also an organic company, and we'll take you to our dairy so you can see our rich pastures and our lively, just so full of personality cows as well. So it'll be great fun. So with that, let's take you to the place. And I think we have a little video for you. Is that right, John?
That is right. Let me get it set up. David, while I'm getting it set up, can I just get you to answer one question for me?
Oh, please.
What did it feel like to win best cheese in the world 6 months ago?
Oh my gosh, it certainly sent the team and I and the entire community here in Oregon on cloud 9, and I'm still pinching myself in disbelief. It's just really an honor that we share with our community and other American artisan cheese makers, as the spotlight of artisan cheese making is now on the United States. So we are just filled with pride as a result of this award.
Well, that's amazing. You're amazing. I know you have to go. I love you deeply. We're gonna play this video here. Tom, if you're able to unmute yourself, if you want to go ahead. David, you can get in. We love you so much. Have a safe
Love
night.
You all. Enjoy. I'm sorry to miss this tasting with you. Have a great time.
And
happy cheese evening.
Oh, what did I just do?
Happy American Cheese
you
Society.
too. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Say hi to everybody at the wedding, David.
I did okay, right?
Well,
All right, gang, this is Tom Van Voorhees in Central Point, Oregon. This is a little 3-minute loop that runs in our cheese shop. We've got a big screen on the wall, and it's just a nice, quick overview of where we live, what we do, how we do it. We had said at the beginning, this creamery was founded in 1933, which was the American Depression. And back then it was cheddar and cottage cheese and butter. And in the 1950s, the president started making blue cheese. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with a cheese from Sonoma, California called Vella Dry Jack. Maybe it's at Antonelli's. It's a great American cheese. The Vella family is the founding family of Road Creamery. And in 2002 is when David took over. And the company was on the brink of closure in 2002. They couldn't find anyone to carry on making cheese in this little town. The factory was too small. Everything was done by hand. And David and his business partner at the time stepped in and really deliberately created the kind of company that they would like to work for, which is where you see the environmental impact, the social impact, giving back to the community, taking care of employees, becoming a B Corp. That's one of the leaders of the B Corp community. And there's our big barn. Now we'll get into the farm a little bit later because we're waiting for Zach, our farmer, something's going on up there and he's going to be a little bit late. That's the nature of life with animals. But he'll join us and talk you through the farm experience. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about the company. And we shot some videos so you can get a sense of what it's like to walk into our shop as well. And then we look forward to eating some of the cheeses.
Yeah, and so y'all, with the video content you'll see here, this is our first night using Zoom. We did it for a couple of different reasons, and the video quality has shown to be a little choppy in that first video. We're going to talk over, narrate everything. There's no sound on the videos so that we can be talking and you can hear us. But the goal is to get a sort of a sense of place, and we can pause. I'm going to go ahead and open a chat window. Definitely use the chat feature to ask questions throughout the night. We are thrilled to have you all here. It's such a fun time. But as I said, it's the first time that we'll be using Zoom for one of our large tastings. Thank you for being flexible and jumping on this platform with us tonight. So Tom and I, we were just talking, Tom has been in cheese since 2001, a stand-up comic, and fell into the cheese world somewhat accidentally. You needed to get paid money, and they were paying money. And he has been, my first time meeting Tom was in 2009. Same weekend I met David for the first time at the American Cheese Society conference. Tom was competing with one of our other good friends, Steve Jones, in a cheesemonger competition that the American Cheese Society was putting on. And they won first place for all of it. They crushed the world. And I was just so in awe because I didn't know anything really yet about cheese. And Tom they knew it, they could discuss it. And so we're in great hands. If for some reason the video quality doesn't come through the way you hoped it to, I can always share these. You can contact me afterwards at info@antonellischeese.com. And we can share these videos with you privately so that you can watch them. They're really, they're not choppy videos. It's just the way that the Zoom is interacting with them tonight. Definitely let us know what you're drinking tonight. Tom and I are going to spend time talking about the cheeses. definitely spotlighting Rogue Creamery. My little story that I didn't get to share about David because he needed to run off was that my first ever ACS, it was the first day, American Cheese Society, he was the president, and I just volunteered for 3 days, 7 days rather, and worked myself into the hospital because I worked so hard. And David, he was walking down the hall one day as president of the organization, and he looked at me and he said, "I hear you're the guy that's trying to take my job as president." And that was the first time I ever talked to him. And then the following year, he walked past me in the hallway and he said, "I love that shirt." And so I jokingly said, "Why don't we trade?" and kept walking. And that night, coming down into the lobby bar, I didn't know anybody. I remember this was North Carolina. I didn't know anybody. And David was standing in the middle of all of the, like, I don't know, the grand dames, the famous cheese makers and all of the most important cheese people in the room. And I walked up to him with this, I had my shirt in my bag just in case he was joking. And I brought the shirt under my arm. I walked up to him, I said, and right as I was about to say, "Here's your shirt," he turned to me and he said, "Hey, here's your shirt. Where's mine?" And I handed him from underneath my arm, I handed him to him. So we have done that every year since 2011. And so I've got a whole wardrobe of these unbelievably fancy Rogue Creamery shirts. And so I'm going to be changing throughout the course of the night. So Tom, typically what we'll do is we're seeing lots of people drinking Sauterne, Cavas. We've got Grenache Blancs, some Brut Rosés. I'll be manning all the chat window tonight. So if you have questions, just add them there. Tom and I will be going in progression. Those of you that picked up cheese plates from our shop, let's see if I can get a shot of it there. Woo, there we go. We're going to be starting with this awesome cheddar that has a little bit of green specks in it. That'll be at your 12 o'clock or rather 1 o'clock. And then we're going to taste clockwise around the plate. And Tom and I will talk you through the flavors. We've got some video content, some pictures, some other stories. And as David mentioned, we have another special guest. The farm manager is going to be joining us, Zach. But I guess the cows are a little jumpy this afternoon, and so he's a little bit behind schedule. So he'll be joining us soon. And I think the last thing, Tom, I don't know if you want to mention anything about how you approach tasting cheese, and or rather how Rogue talks about tasting cheese, just to kind of get the evening set up.
Sure, I'm happy to. And a note for the Oregon people, we did not put crackers in your box. So if you need to run to the kitchen and grab something, do it. We wanted to put oatcakes in there. So one thing I always say for these is you want to taste the cheese by itself first. And then from there, we can get into, you know, we kind of went for pairings, but because we have two groups in two different places with working out of two different shops, what we came up with really was a cheese party. So things you would see on a cheese board, things you would see if you were hanging out socially. Remember when you could get together with people? So there are a couple combinations I think work really well, but really we're just putting out the kinds of food you're going to have around when you're having this kind of happy hour. So we're not going to be super strict on the pairings. We will identify each cheese. I know the blues look kind of similar in their way. But for me, I think we have a good progression of intensity from the mild hop yard and then the really nice malty chocolate stout. And then our biggest cheddar, Mount Mazama, which is full on everything you want in a cheddar. And then we'll move to blue. And blue cheese can be polarizing for people. Some people really swear they don't like it, but they haven't had ours, for one. And also, Smoky Blue is kind of the gateway. It's the gentle, mild introduction. Caveman is quite different, and then we'll save Rogue River for very last. And that's the big award winner, the one wrapped in leaves. John, you're frozen on my screen. Are you still there?
Here,
there you go.
I'm typing as fast as I can. And Matt, I'm sending out for, at least for Antonelli's, I'm typing in what the cheeses and pairings are that we put on the plates tonight. So if anybody wants to look at that, it'll be popping up in just a couple seconds, just so you can see what our kind of menu and pairings are. And I see that Zach just arrived, which is really exciting. So I'm getting him set up as a co-host and make sure that he's able to join us. So I am thrilled that he's been able to make it. Zach, welcome to the team, sir. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but we can't see you. I just want to introduce you to everybody. There you are.
Better?
Welcome, sir. Yeah, we can see you. All right.
Great.
All right. So, folks, again, if you have any questions, definitely let us know. I am thrilled to be hosting y'all tonight. Kendall and I love Rogue Creamery. They've been a great partner of ours over the years and have given us a great reason to be joyful. And so, those of you that see on your plate, we're going to eat a lot of cheese tonight. So I think we should get started. We got a lot of videos. We got a lot of good content. If the internet gets splotchy for anybody, again, we're recording this. We can share the video afterwards, and hopefully it's not splotchy in the recording. I also have all the video content that we could share with you after the fact. So just let me know. It's great to see so many familiar names popping up, and we love talking about cheese. So I think, without further ado, why don't I figure out how to close this window there? Tom, do you want to talk about a tasting of Hop Yard?
I'm happy to. Yeah, Hop Yard is the one, as John pointed out, with the little green specks in it. Those are hops. So we live where the hops grow. This is for anybody who's a beer nut like me. Hops are little cone flowers that bring bitterness to ale. Particularly IPAs use a high amount of hops. And they grow in Oregon, Washington. They don't grow everywhere, but we produce a lot of hops here in Oregon. And it's really cool to see them too, because they're climbing. It's a climbing plant. So if you haven't seen hops grow, it's about a 20-foot high trellis with these diagonal bines coming down, and the hops climb their way up. It's really a striking thing to look at as you drive down the country road. So Hop Yard is a mild cheddar. When we're adding flavors, we do a few different flavor added cheddars, some herbed ones, a lavender, a rosemary, and the Hop Yard is along those lines. Very mild. It's on a younger side, so it's kind of a soft, not so crumbly cheddar. And I think it's just got a nice kind of fresh, green, almost vegetable kind of undertone to it. I'm outside. I'm swinging at flies over here. Sorry.
That's awesome. I'm smelling, Tom, like fresh made pasta with a little bit of oil and a hint of like bit of like basil, just like a little bit. It's so lovely.
Yeah, this is a subtle one.
Roll.
Yeah. So I'm also one to kind of really get into looking at how it is, because when we get to the Mount Mazama and breaking it, it's going to be very brittle. This one kind of stays together. You can ball it up a little. As cheddars are young, the moisture content is still pretty high, and there's an elasticity to them. You know, if you make a grilled cheese sandwich with a very mild cheddar, it's going to be ropey and stringy when you cut it, and it's super melty. If you make a grilled cheese sandwich with a very aged cheddar, it tends to go greasy on you, and you get little islands of cheese. And that's because the fat has broken free during the aging process. And so those oils and things release, and the structure of the cheese is more brittle. But as that happens also, we get a much higher level of flavor. The flavor intensity really grows as a cheddar ages. And the two styles of cheese we make at Rogue Creamery are just that, cheddar and blue cheese. I mentioned earlier, in the old days, there was a butter churn, and the creamery produced a lot of butter. And cottage cheese was much more common part of the American kitchen back in the 30s and 40s than it is now. So the demand isn't really there either. Oh, here's my Jefferson Cheddar cheese T-shirt. So our unflavored cheddars are called Jefferson, and it's a nod to the region we live in. I don't know if you can read. It says not just the state of mind here. There's a mythical 51st state called Jefferson, which has been a conversation out west for over 100 years. And it's a 51st state that takes Northern California and Southern Oregon and squishes them together because neither part feels like the rest of their state. So we are in a region called Jefferson in our minds. So Jefferson Cheddar is not on the plate tonight. It's just our straightforward, unflavored cheddar. Hop Yard has turned out to be a great one. There's a wonderful local, it's a very seasonal and locally sourced fast food burger joint here called Burgerville. It's a really cool organization. It's worth a Google. It's in the Portland and Seattle area predominantly. And they're doing a burger right now with Hop Yard as the featured cheese on it. And it's selling really well in all their shops. So people are catching on to Hop Yard out here. I hope it stays in your shop and you can enjoy it some more. I'm not seeing chats, but if people have questions, fire them in there and John will ask them. And I'd also like to let everybody know, I want to let everybody know that also on this call from Oregon, we have Lindsay and Tyler who work in our financial offices. We also have Jessica and Kate from our wholesale team. We have, I think Tim and Lincoln are in the cheese shop and they have this on as well. So some customers might see this as they're shopping today because we're still open down here. So there's quite a few Rogue Creamery folks on this call. So if you have a question in another direction, feel free to type it into the chat.
Awesome. My question for you is why blue cheese and cheddar? Was there a specific decision point, ease of make or something that?
Well, a couple different reasons. One is that, like I said, Rogue Creamery was on the brink of closure. The Vela family had been there. It was the third generation of Velas who really said, hey, Grandpa, we don't want to go to Oregon anymore. We live in California. What's going on with that cheese factory? And they were very inactive back at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s. There wasn't much happening. I think Rogue Creamery had about 3 employees left, one of whom is still here. She's been with the company since 1968. So she came in the deal when David bought the creamery. Being a business decision to save a historic creamery, they really put all their resources into the transaction to take control of the company. They realized the way to make it relevant was by continuing to make blue cheese and specialize in that, because the commodity market for cheddar had grown so much over the decades that we were no way going to compete in cheddar in a grocery store with Cabot or with Tillamook or any of the big producers that are automated and they're making as much cheese in 3 days as we make in a year. But blue cheese was the obvious niche. However, we have the cheddar equipment. So there's cheddar cheese making equipment there, and there's blue cheese making equipment. And a little bit later, when we get into some behind the scenes, you'll see we're not super modern in the equipment. We're using a lot of the old original vats, the agitators, the hoops, the aging racks. We've modernized the aging caves, but we really don't have the resources to completely refit the factory. And on a local level, we have people that are used to coming in to get cheese curds the day we make cheddar. And if anybody's ever lived near a cheddar factory, you know about cheese curds. Curds are really squeaky. It's the last step in cheddar making before you press it into a block and start aging it. And the curds are kind of like the size of packing peanuts, and they're very soft. They're like fresh mozzarella. and they squeak, they're elastic, and the proteins rub against your teeth right when they're made, before they've ever been put in the fridge. So we have people that really want to come and get fresh curds. That's a great part of our business in the shop. And then we do have some really unique cheddars. We realized to differentiate ourselves in cheddar, we could actually put some very special things on the market. Some of our beer cheddars have become very successful. I mentioned the lavender cheddar that has quite a following. So blue and cheddar really were out of necessity. That's the equipment we had. And then it was David and the production team and the sales team that got into the selection of how we're gonna, within that, when I'm describing our blue cheeses to somebody, it's kind of a haiku where there's a very strict formula, but within that, you find freedom to be able to do many different things. So using the same equipment to make blue cheese, we can make 8 or 9 different recipes that are very unique and different from each other. And some of that happens at the vat, but a lot of that happens in aging after the cheese has been produced. And similarly with cheddar, you can add these adjunct flavors and ingredients and make a real interesting cheese without it reinventing the wheel.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I got one question that came up is just, how far drive are y'all from Bend, and where in Oregon are you? So I answered southern, sort of central Oregon near the southern border.
We are, yeah. So the interstate here is east of the Cascade Mountains. So we're not on the coast, but we are 30 miles north of the California border. So Portland is about 250 miles from here. And San Francisco, similarly, is about the same. So imagine the space between San Francisco and Portland, and we're just over the border on the Oregon side.
Awesome. All right.
Takes us about 2 hours to get to the coast.
Since we have Zach, just in case he gets cut out or pulled away for animals, why don't we jump over to the farm for a few minutes? We'll show the slideshow and video, and Zach can talk and welcome us. And then we'll come back to chocolate stout and talk about that tasting in just a minute. Zach, you want to dive in?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
So you want to just kind of talk about the farm and then tell me when you want me to play the slideshow?
Yeah, absolutely. So Road Creamery purchased the dairy farm in 2012, I think was the date. And from that time, they decided they wanted to move in a direction that they could provide themselves a self-sustaining dairy farm that was environmentally friendly, but also organic. And during the process of building that farm from what it already was to what they wanted it to be, David decided that robots were also a thing that he really was interested in. And so he went out and saw several different robots and decided a particular one was the kind and installed 2 robots. Right now, our dairy is milking 109 cows. We have a total of 202 cows. And we milk Holsteins, Brown Swiss, and a handful of Jerseys and a few crossbreeds in between. But we're grazing right now. We'll be grazing we started March the 1st, and we'll go all the way into late October with grazing. So we do quite about 6 to 7 months of grazing. And then we do have more than that sometimes, but it's mostly just for being outside. Not as much grass grows that late in the year, but you know, we just try to be good to the environment. We try to do things right and try to make sure our cows are well taken care of. I reside on the dairy here. There's a home or 2 on the dairy. Myself and my husband reside here, and then Alyssa works with me, and her spouse live as well on the farm. So there's 3 of us that work here total, and we pretty much just take care of the animals and the land as best we can, and that's our job, to make sure that the cows are healthy, they're happy, they're well loved, they're well taken care of, and that they produce a quality milk that Road Creamery expects for its cheese.
Zach, a customer asked if there's any particular pasturage, and then Kristen asked robots ? They are amazing and fascinating, and we'll show you them in the video in just a minute. It is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So any particular pasturage was a question that was asked.
Yeah, so our grasses are pretty much native for the most part. So we have a lot of fescue in Southern Oregon, as well as orchard grass, white clovers, some red clovers, and a little bit of just annual and perennial rye grasses that come up early spring, late winter. They're pretty much our winter grasses. So we do have pretty much green grass 11 months out of the year. There might be a harsh January, early February where it kind of dies back a little bit, but it never truly turns brown. We pretty much stay green 12 months out, 11, 12 months out the year. And then robots. So yeah, the robots, what they do is they actually, and you'll see this in the video, milk the animals fully. So there aren't people in there attaching the milking machine to the animal anymore. The cows are actually able to come on their own terms. When they say they're ready to milk, they come to the barn and they get milked by the robots. So we have two robots, Charlie and Matilda, and the cows have their choice of either robot. And what we find is that when a cow enters the herd, so she has her first calf or whatever, and she enters the herd, she actually finds that robot that she likes, and she'll pretty much stick to that robot pretty much in her entire life. We can actually track every single milking that animal has at every single time, every day. And so you usually find that they have the same robot patterns, but also they come in at the same times, except when we change their permission, and then they'll find a pattern there and they'll stick to that pattern as well.
It's mind-boggling. I remember when I got to visit, I spent about a half an hour just sitting there watching. And what I thought was pretty amazing was that the way David explained it was that the animals, they could choose when they wanted to be milked and not be at the mercy of a human choosing when they're going to be milked. And so they're healthier, they remain more active. They can milk in the middle of the night if they needed to.
Exactly.
And it tracks the quality of the milk for you. It tests if they're sick.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an amazing thing. So we'll see that here in a minute. Do you want me to play that video?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, and we can take questions at any point if you feel like it, or if anybody really has something they want to pause on or go back to. I think we could take a couple of minutes. My evening's pretty free now. We're all caught up and good to go. So
awesome, and we've got the chat window is going, so I'll just feed you questions. So I'm going to get this organized here in just a second. And again, hopefully it's not too choppy. We'll get this pause. All right. Share screen. All right, here we go, y'all. Can you see it? Here we go. And if you want to talk about what we're seeing, Zach, go ahead.
Yep, absolutely. So the first slide is just a hi, welcome to Road Creamery Dairy Farm. But as we go there's a couple of cows that I recognize, Charm and Buffy. So each cow has a number, but they all have names too. And for me, I've grown up on dairy farming many and you learn cows by their markings or a certain feature about them. You actually memorize their name before you memorize who their actual number is. And so as you're seeing there, that's an overhead shot of our barns. And then now looking from the Rogue River towards our barn and our pastures. So we have roughly about 63 acres of land here on the dairy farm. And we were able to just maintain that. So this is a pretty cool video. This was the first day that we grazed this year. This was, I think, roughly March the 1st. And so the cows, after a long winter with no grass, they appreciate the first day. So I was just as excited as they were to let them out, and they get really excited and they run and they jump and they play a lot. So it's just a lot of special. And then of course, births. I mean, this one was kind of special. Usually when a cow gives birth, the other cows don't really seem to bother her. They usually just give her space and she'll wander off to her own. I just happened to see all the cows in a circle around this cow, and I decided to run over there and see what was going on. And it was kind of cute. They were just all around there, and I was able to get down in the grass and capture that moment, which I thought was pretty special. I think it actually kind of blew up on our Instagram, actually. And then this is our jelly cow. And so here, this is actually looking towards the coast, will be on the other side of that mountain range there. And what you see is you can see our cows grazing, but also you can see our method of irrigation. So we irrigate directly from the Rogue River, and we irrigate roughly 6 to 8 months out of the year based off of what happens. Here in Southern Oregon, we usually start grouting About right now, and we'll drought up until late September and maybe sometimes early October. So we have to irrigate. And thank goodness for the Rogue River, we get roughly, a lot of snowpack and then a lot of flow, and that water generally just goes straight to the ocean and people catch it on the way. So we're very blessed to have a great fresh water source and be able to water our pastures throughout the year. And then this is a rotating cow brush, and this is Clarabelle, who's getting her head scratched there. So this brush, when they touch it, they touch it and it automatically turns on and starts spinning, and so it goes around, up and down, and it actually brushes them off from top to bottom, side to side, and the cows will actually sit there and beat the daylights of it. They love it. So they're getting brushed for hygiene, but also for massaging, and it also helps naturally reduce pests and that sort of thing that like to get onto the animals. So we'll put some lavender oils and that sort of thing on the brush itself every other day or so, just to try to help produce flies organically. And so here you see Charlie and Matilda. So Charlie is the left robot and Matilda is the right robot. And so they've been in since 2015. So they're going on their 5th year now. And each robot can milk 60 cows twice a day. So essentially 120 milkings from each robot. So a total of 240. We've actually pushed that and got a few more out of them. Where I'm pretty happy with how they operate. They really save my day, but they also make my job as a dairy farm manager, but also as a herdsman taking care of the animals much easier because they track the data on the cows. So each cow wears an RFID card, and the barn is designed to where they pass through a couple of scanners so we can actually track where they're at in the barn, but also track all the data about this animal, her steps, for instance, how much she eats at the robot, or how much milk she produced, or the quality of the milk that was produced. And so we can actually get graphs and patterns from our software that controls all of this. And it really helps us control our animal health and what we need to make as decisions as farmers to do a better job, or to diagnose maybe, hey, this cow isn't feeling too well in her stomach, we should feed her some oat hay rather than leaving her on the pasture. She may need some fiber in her diet. So we can actually take that cow out of the herd for that day and go give her a different food for that day. And sometimes that makes a difference. And so if you want to keep playing there.
Sure. And this is from the viewing parlor, like a customer viewing parlor area.
Yeah, I did notice one of the questions were, do we do tours? So right now, unfortunately, we are not doing tours because of the whole COVID-19. So you want to pause there. And, it's really unfortunate, but, health is more important, obviously, to the cows and to us and to everybody and their families as it is to do this. But once we're back open and this seems to hopefully blow over, we all hope soon, I'm sure we'll be back at it, and we will offer 2 tours 5 days a week. Our days open are Wednesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And our tour times are at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So we don't do any self-guided tours, but we do have a led tour by a person that works here on the farm. And so we'll take you around to all the different locations. We'll take you to the baby calves, to the barn after they're fed their milk, to the wean barn, to the maternity pasture, which is just behind me. And I'll show you that in a minute. But also the big cathedral barn, you'll actually get to take a few steps inside and see all the cows and how the barn actually works. And then, of course, the best stop is the robot room for me, because you get to see inside of the robot room and watch cows actually be milked. And a lot of people have never seen this before. And to me, even as many years as I've done this, I'm 28, I've done this my entire life. It still blows my mind that there's the technology to do this sort of thing. And so we really love it. So if you want to go ahead and play the video, I'll describe exactly how the robot works. So what you're seeing right now is the robot and the camera attaching a teacup to the cow's teat. So right there is the teat, and that's the last of 4 teacups that go on. And what it does then is actually holds the hoses to give it some support so the machine doesn't slip. It actually stays perfectly centered under her udder. Pause right here for a second. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is, so 10,009, that is the cow's ID. And it's kind of hard to see, at least from my view, but on the top right-hand corner is her number again, but also her name. So that's Madison. Madison's probably one of our best cows. And if you look where it says total yield, it says 66.3 pounds. That's what she's estimated to give at that particular milking. So our best animals milk anywhere from 3 times to 4, or even sometimes 6 times a day on their own will. And so Madison, for instance, at that time was giving roughly 125 pounds. Right now, our best cows are giving about 145. All we feed when we're not grazing is alfalfa hay, a formulized pellet in the robot. So it's vitamins, minerals. It has some corn and molasses in it, and a few other things, of course, all organic and formulated by a nutritionist. So our animals get a nutritionist. So the nutritionist will come in and say, hey, how are the cows? And he'll look at them and say, oh, wow, they've really gained some body condition, or they've dropped off a little bit. We need to increase the protein in the diet, or they look great. How are they milking? How is the fat level? How is the protein? Do we need to make any changes? But then he'll also look at the quality of the milk too, to make changes to the diet. And then also we have a veterinarian who comes down once a month, and he actually looks at the health of the animals, and we ultrasound animals to see who's pregnant, who's not. So these animals are being well taken care of. Their diet is well formalized, and it's mostly grass, but we do also offer a little bit of feed and hay. And we want to make sure that they're healthy and well taken care of. Another good point that I see a lot in questions that I get here at the farm is, this seems animal welfare friendly, and it is. It's very welfare friendly, and we also are certified by a third party who comes in and says, these are what we expect you to meet. They verify our records. They check the animals. They'll walk through the cows and see every single cow on a random day out of the year, twice or 3 times a year, and say, hey, we think this looks great, but maybe you can make an improvement here. And so I think last year we scored a 98 or a 99 on our animal welfare audit. And so that was a big step for us. This is our 2nd year doing it. And I know that it's very important to us as the producers and the farmers, but also to the public to know this has been certified by a third party that says we're doing things right and we're trying to do things right. And then, we have a hoof trimmer, for instance, that even comes out and gives the ladies pedicures a couple of times a year, so that way their feet are always in great shape and well maintained. So if you want to go ahead and play now. So that was the screen that shows milk production. What you're seeing here, if you let it play to right there, the red numbers that you're seeing right there, those are milk meters. And so this is really what makes the robots, for me, really awesome. It tells us actually 3 different things about the cow, or actually 5 different things about the cow's milk. It tells us the volume of the milk, how fast the milk is flowing. It tells us the quality of the milk in 3 different levels. So blood conductivity, MDI, which is mastitis detection, and teat-in threshold. And what those 3 factors really indicate for us is, how healthy that animal is. And so we get every single milking, we get this data in a file for this particular animal, and it graphs, and it can say, hey, this cow has ran a steady 4.0 on conductivity, but she spiked to 7.8 in this particular quarter. So a cow has 4 teats and 4 quarters. And so it actually pinpoints which quarter could have a possible infection. And a lot of times we'll go and we'll run a somatic cell count test on the farm and say, oh, maybe there isn't a problem, but maybe there is. And so it's good. It's just good to help us pinpoint something that we can't physically see, and we can pinpoint it within 20 minutes or less of that animal being milked. So we're able to identify problems quickly. But also what the meter does is it tells the robot, hey, this cow's milk is X or Y. If the milk were, for whatever reason, to test not that great, we have our own parameters set to say, if the milk quality doesn't meet X, Y, or Z, we want to dump this cow's milk down the drain or in a container to feed the calves, or to just test it again to make sure, or whatever. So a lot of times the milk quality doesn't meet what we would say is great for our cheese, but that doesn't mean it's not okay for consumption. It just means that we just don't consider that to be acceptable for our cheese. So we'll feed that to our calves. So nothing really goes to waste. And even if it does go to the drain, it's all caught and goes back into our lagoon, which is then fed back to flushing the lanes or into fertilizing the pasture. So we're able to retain all of our waste and all of the water that we use on the farm. So the solids are also separated off. They're composted, and we use those for bedding on the cows as well. So we're recycling every bit of manure and every bit of ounce of water that we use. And we're doing that in a way that the state of Oregon considers to be in well checked and in good order and permitted to be correctly done. We're audited by the State Department of Oregon a couple of times per year on that. And they say, hey, this is the amount of animals you're allowed to have. This is the amount of manure that you're allowed to apply, and it has to be separated, meaning solids actually don't go onto the field, only liquids do. And so we separate the solids and the liquids and only apply the liquids to the field, or flush that back through the lanes to clean the lanes for where the cows eat, and the side of their beds as well. So we do a lot of good things for the environment, but as we continue on in the video, we'll see from the meter, it actually flows into these little yellow holes that go into the receiver. So this right here is milk flowing in from the meter. So each one has a spot that it goes into. And then this is the receiver itself. So what you're seeing at the bottom is the milk from this particular cow, Madison, flowing into the receiver. So this will build up as she milks, and then it will get flushed out and emptied as she finishes. So this will just show a couple seconds of the cow's milk accumulating. That holds 63 pounds, by the way, pretty cool. And then you'll see me actually come down and close the top to see the cow. And so there's Madison eating her grain. So Paul's right there. So that's a good shot of her. Oh, we didn't get paused. I may not be connected.
Oh, sorry, I didn't pause. Yeah, I was so.
Oh, you're good. So anyways, what was happening right there was actually Madison was actually eating a bite of grain. So we allot each cow based off of her age and where she stands in this particular lactation, a amount of feed. So for instance, all of our animals who have just had a calf are allotted 30 pounds of grain a day, and they actually only eat about 13 to 14 pounds of that. But the idea is to make sure they have plenty of options to get grain. So that way, if they milk 4 or 5 times a day, they're not standing there without a treat. We like to give them some treats while they milk.
Awesome. That's great.
So I noticed a couple of questions, and I tried to grab a few as we went. So if you just want to replay the slideshow, and maybe I can answer a couple of questions real quick.
Well, why don't you, I'll ask the questions. They came up at the very end.
Yeah.
Just quickly, how do the cows get into the be milked? And then how does it end? And then we're going to go taste more cheese, and then we can come back to those questions.
Yep, absolutely. So the cows actually will come in. Am I on video? I don't think I am.
Yes, you are. We can see.
I am. Okay. Okay, good. Sorry, I got up to walk. I just went to look, but actually I don't see any cows. I think they're out grazing. So the cows will come in through the back side of the robot. They come on their own. We actually will push them once or twice the first couple of days that they've had to milk. We'll teach them a couple of days. But after about day 3 or 4, the cows will actually learn to come on their own. And so, like, for instance, we had 3 heifers calve last week. We pushed them once, and then the next day they were milking 3 times already. So they signalize, as long as that we're calm with them and they're comfortable in the situation, this place is somewhere I understand that my body needs to go to release my milk because my calf isn't drinking this milk. But also that I'm going to be fed and it's a comfortable place for me. We aim to keep everything as quiet as possible around the cows and as comfortable as we can around the cows. That makes them feel happy and want to deliver their milk and do it in a fast pace and go back to their normal day of eating hay or eating grass and laying down and enjoying their time.
Awesome. That was amazing. And and so while I'm gonna answer one of those last questions, I'm gonna kick it over to Tom to talk about some cheese quick. Tom,
sure.
do you want to talk about chocolate stout and the Mount Mazama? And I'll answer.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think everybody's looking at their cheese going, when are we going to eat?
That was amazing, Zach. That was like super. I was so lost in that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love visiting the farm. It's an amazing, amazing place to take people. And I've given a few tours up there too. I did see a question about Holstein and butterfat. And that's why it's a mixed herd. We do want the volume from a Holstein, but the butterfat of the Jerseys, the Guernseys, and then the protein level of the brown Swiss. So what Zach is really doing is making cheese milk.
So we don't. we don't classify our milk. We don't homogenize it or separate the cream. So we try to do that naturally at the farm through breeding and genetics. And compromise of milk compromise with Brown Swiss and Holsteins actually puts us at a 3.5 and 3.5 fat and protein level, which is exactly what we need at Rogue Creamery to make blue cheese and cheddar.
So chocolate stout is the next cheese, and I've been eating mine. This has a little bit of a brown marbling to it, just so you know which one we're looking at. It's not the white cheddar. And we were talking about age and elasticity, and see how this is a young cheddar, kind of pliable. The way we make it, and I was mentioning cheese curds earlier, so that phase of cheese making, we manipulate the curd, drain the whey off, so we've got slabs of pliable cheese solids, and we run them through a mill to make this little curd shape. And that's the moment there where we salt the cheese. And this is traditional cheddar making, England, Vermont, Wisconsin, California, Oregon. Cheddar is cheddar. And at this phase where you're salting the curds, it's important to distribute the salt evenly throughout. If you were salting big slabs, you'd only get salt on the outside. So that's like a giant mix master that's turning these curds and keeping them from sticking to each other and letting the salt get in there. And we use salt in cheddar heavily, but in cheese making in general, salt is a big component for three reasons. One, obviously the flavor component, because it brings out that brightness of the food. The second is because it wicks moisture away, right? Think about, well, I'm sure it snows a lot in Austin, but you salt your driveway to dry it off. And so salt will pull moisture out of the curd, because mind you, some of these cheddars we're making, we're gonna age for several years. And the third thing salt is a preservative. If you think about salt fish, bacon, cured meats, salt is one of the oldest preservatives known to man. So using salt in cheese making is very much science as much as it is flavor. And during this phase, when it's curds, is when we have an opportunity to add flavors. So that's when the hops would go into the vat. That's when the lavender or rosemary would go into the vat. In the case of chocolate stout, that's when the beer goes into the vat. And so we're working with a brewery in Portland called Hopworks Urban Brewery, Hub for short. And Hopworks is making organic beer. They're also a B Corp like us, so we have lots of common interests as companies. So the collaboration is very natural. And we add probably, I would say, about 40 or 48 ounces of beer to make one 40-pound block of cheddar. Excuse me. And what we do is pour the beer in with the curds and let it just bathe the curds for about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, just long enough to really infuse them. So you see a little bit of a marbling pattern in your cheddar, and that's where the beer lives. What we get in flavor, to me, is one of my favorite cheeses. This will make one of the best grilled cheeses you've ever had. The maltiness, this is a dark stout with an adjunct of chocolate added to it. So to drink the beer is very, very malty. There's a residual sugar to it, there's a sweetness to it, and there's a chocolate finish. You don't get all the nuance of the chocolate in the cheese, but you do get that heady, malty, big finish to it. And if everybody has almonds, I found this really pleasant. If you want to do a pairing, I thought the almonds went really well with this.
Yeah, the Oregon folks have almonds for this pairing. Here in Austin, we're doing guava paste.
Oh, guava paste.
Super
That'd be
delicious.
good.
Yeah, it tasted great. That sweet with the malt, that dark roast. It was so good. You want to dive into Mount Mazama too? I can
Yeah,
barely
Mount
keep my
Mazama is a
hands
neat
off it.
one. So this was made 2 to 3 years ago, this Mount Mazama, the white one. And talking about elasticity and the breakdown of when we go to bend that one, boom, it just falls apart, crumbles. And this is the one that when you melt it, it's going to give off all that grease and fat. It's going to be liberated. It's not incorporated anymore. So Mount Mazama is about 15 to 20% goat milk. We used to work with a goat dairy. Unfortunately, when we went organic, we realized that the goat dairies that are running organic milk are using all their milk. There's no surplus of organic goat milk. So Mount Mazama, luckily, we made a great deal of it when we were running it in 2016 and 2017. Those were the last makes of Mount Mazama. So this cheese has some age on it.
Yeah, this is.
And there's a crunch. Everybody getting a little bit of a crunch there, a little crystalline snap. And that's an interesting thing about aged cheddar, and it comes with time. As these protein chains break down, there's an amino acid called tyrosine that kind of has no connection to anything, and it's floating out there, and it turns into this crystally little nugget of goodness. I think technically it's a flaw, but from a customer point of view, everybody loves it. So we are definitely looking for that crystalline crunch, and we'll see that again, hopefully, in the Rogue River Blue at the end. So Mount Mazama is one of the staff favorites. I know it's at Antonelli's. It's one of the ones you guys already had, so you've been turned on to it. Let's all just enjoy the heck out of it. It's going to be around for probably another year or two, and snap it up. It's a treasure.
Yeah, it's tasting spectacular tonight.
I love this cheese.
Well,
I'm not seeing the comments, but I hope you guys are too.
Yeah, there's quite a few happy. We have it paired with a jalapeno jelly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys too, right?
Yeah, we've got a little confetti wine jelly with some hot pepper in it. Yeah, I love the spicy with this. It's almost kind of fudgy in its texture, you know. It's such a dense cheese once it's in your mouth. It's creamy, but it's also really solidly there, you know. And just in general, something that I always mention to people, when you're looking at cheese, when you're shopping for cheese, understand, and there's a lot of people that are concerned about calorie counts. A serving of cheese is by weight. It's an ounce, right? That when you read a nutritional. And a cheese like mozzarella or brie or something very soft has a high moisture content. So when they're doing a nutritional on that, your weight of that 1 ounce that's being measured is largely water. When we get a cheese like this, that water is gone. This is all solid all the way through. So if you think about how easy it would be to eat half a pound of mozzarella without batting an eye, or man, I could put away that brie so easily. When you get a cheese that's as solid as this, or even like a Parmigiano, you can't eat that much because it's filling. And so this, you know, these aged cheeses essentially are like power bars. There's a lot packed into these.
It's so good. It's so good. Can I
love the spicy with it.
Yeah, it tastes great. I haven't done that pairing yet. I'm glad you recommended it. It was great on our end. Just a nice like warmth in the back of the throat.
Yeah.
Well with the acidity. You can feel on the side of your tongue what dryness is when we talk about like a wine. When you take a bite of that cheese, the side of your tongue immediately dries up, and then you get this rush of saliva. And that's typically you hear people talking about that experience in a wine context as a dry wine, but you get that with cheese too, especially with some of these aged cheddars. When you age something out 10 years, you can get to like grapefruit, like super puckery. This is like a perfect balance. It's so wonderful. Tom, I'm going to play that video of the cheese making slides.
Good.
Check that out. Here, I'll get
yeah, this would be fun because you'll see a lot of the old days. We have some great footage from the 1950s, maybe early 60s, but you'll see one thing to notice is that the equipment they're working with is the same equipment. The outfits have changed. The paper hats are gone in favor of hairnets. We use gloves depending on the job. Back in the old days, I don't think there's any pictures of cheesemakers smoking, but it was a lot looser on a food safety level back in the old days. This guy was named Charlie, and he's in a lot of our pictures. This is blue cheese making. It's a little bit different than cheddar. I mentioned about how we dry out the vat and isolate the curds. With blue cheese making, we want to retain the moisture. We don't want to dry out the curds. So that's Oregon blue. way back in the early days. And the aging rooms, our founder went to Roquefort, France. Now there's Jeremy, that's a modern picture. But you see how much fluid is in that vat. And those curds are like little pearls. They're wet. There we go. So this is Hooping Blue. So at the bottom, if you want to pause this, that's Poasa. Now he's a Samoan guy who's been with us for about 15 years or more at least. Absolute workhorse. So this is a really fast-paced part of the make. Once we've gotten the curds to form and just general cheese making, you start with a vat of milk and you're going to add bacterial cultures like making yogurt, and that thickens things up. And then you're also going to add a coagulant, an enzyme, something acidic that's going to break that into a curdle so that you can manipulate the curds and the whey. So what we have is a lot of whey slopping all over the place, and we're going to get these curds out and hoop them up. Now the hoops at the bottom, the box on top is just a frame so they can hit their targets. The hoops are on the bottom, and you can see stacks of them behind Poasa there. They have about 18 minutes to drain the whole vat, and that's part of the recipe, because if they go too slowly, the curds are going to get crushed. So they got to move, 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 move. This is a fast and furious process. And we're hooping them up. Now the hoops are like colanders. They're perforated, so the whey is going to drain out. But it's the beginning of getting the form of the wheel. You can go forward, John.
All right, if I can find the mouse, there it is.
And usually you'll have two teams doing this, and then he's leveling them off. And so much of this is feel, you guys. There are a couple little science tests along the way to make sure the pH is progressing at the right pace. But a lot of these cheesemakers just know when it's time. They'll break that vat with their finger and look at it and feel it and see how the liquid moves. Now we're de-hooping. So the next day, these have been resting overnight and flipped. So one job, yeah, hold on a sec, John. Oh, that's a nice Oregon blue. Okay, I got a couple things to talk about what you saw there.
That's an impressive picture right there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that there's a couple things. Now that's salt on the outside. So this is different than cheddar. But once the cheeses are hooped up, and one vat is going to get us approximately 130 to 150 wheels of cheese. The wheels, when they're finished, are going to be about 5 pounds each. So that lot that came out of that vat will be identified as that day's work. And there'll be a representative piece that's going to go to the lab and be analyzed for safety. We're going to taste those wheels to make sure they're aging properly. But that lot will live together until it's finished goods and it's going out to Antonelli's or another customer out there. So one cheesemaker will come back about 3 hours after the cheese make and flip every single wheel that was made that day. Sometimes we'll make 2 vats, so they might come back and flip 300 wheels. The reason for the flip is to distribute moisture so that the bottom doesn't get soggy and the top doesn't dry out. Nobody likes a soggy bottom. And then they come back one more time a few hours later and flip them all again. And it isn't until the next morning that these curds have knit together and the molecular bonds are strong enough to take it out of the hoop without it falling apart. But once it's de-hooped, then we do what they call salt flips. And that is running them through salt so that they have salt on the exterior. They do salt in the vat a little bit. But with blue, we're going to salt on the exterior. And remember I said we were going to wick the moisture away, right? So this is a big part of that. And then the aging will begin. So I don't know if we have questions right now.
I'm just going to show.
What do we do with the whey? Okay, so.
Tom,
yeah.
quickly, I just wanted to show the hoop size you can see on the screen is quite big. At the end, when they're de-hooping, the curds will have shrunk to about this size.
Correct.
And that's how much moisture goes away once they knit. You'll lose 50% of the volume, at least.
Yeah, they probably I'd say about 2/3 full when they finally finish their flips. And what do we do with the whey? So we do have a few farmers locally that will come by with 250, 400-gallon tanks, and we can pump them full away, and they'll go back and feed hogs with it. We've irrigated with it. If we have to discard the whey, it has to go through a massive treatment of pH balancing, because if we have to release it into the city system, we could throw the balance of the septic off with the bacterial activity that's going on in whey. So it's a last resort for us to turn it into gray water. We really work hard to find a home for it. All right, so there's top down. You'll notice we're aging now by setting them down flat. That picture of Charlie, they were aging on its edge. And so we flip. In the old days, they used to do quarter turns. Now, here's one of the aging rooms. As I mentioned, we modernized the aging rooms. Originally, these were just cement, concrete block bunkers that were built, no windows. They had refrigeration controls set in the mid-50s for temperature. And then we would water the floor and maintain a couple inches of water at all times on the floor to hydrate the room and maintain a 90% humidity level. That's how it was done in the 50s when Mr. Vella created this system. One of the magic parts of the recipe is this room. It is full of the ambient molds, the cultures, the yeasts, the various strains of very unique microbes that have lived in this room since they started aging blue cheese in it in the 50s. What you see now, this blue sock, this is a very modern system from France that we've employed, which gives us total control of humidity and temperature and airflow. And the real saving grace of that is that if anything were to go wrong in the middle of the night, the right people would be alerted by the computer system, and we'd be immediately aware that something went wrong. In the old days, if the power went out or a cooler broke down, you wouldn't notice till the next morning, and you wouldn't know when that event happened. So we have a lot more control by modernizing this. Interestingly enough, when we cleaned up the walls, we couldn't lose our proprietary funk that Mr. Vella started growing for us. So we only remodeled 3 of the 4 walls and left the old wall to populate the new walls. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was good thinking on David's part, and Tyler too. So here we see, this will be headed for Caveman. This is development of natural Rhine. So there's a different aging room that really is about what are we going to grow on the outside. Now you see a difference too. There's a lot of difference in the rind here. We're intentionally growing a mold and yeast-driven exterior. If any of you were on the Jasper Hill call, you saw their rind ripening processes. This will become the Caveman, which you can identify in your box by that rough, rugged crust on the outside. The white ones were much younger. And it's often that you'll get a blue cheese from us that isn't meant to have a big rind on it, but you'll see some exterior mold. And other cheesemakers will have an absolutely pristine white exterior and only blue on the inside. And they're using a mold inhibiting compound to treat the outside. That used to be the case for Road Creamery in the old days. There's no way to take a compound like that organic, and it's not that important to us for the process. So you will see a little bit of rind growth on our other blues. It's all exactly the same mold that's growing on the inside.
Hey, Tom, do you want to guide us through
Yeah.
Smoky Blue and Caveman tasting?
Let's do Smoky Blue. So this will be the one that's not wrapped in leaves and the one that doesn't have a rind on it, an intentional rind. And I'm out here, it's 90 degrees. Mine is mushy. I've got to do it right onto the knife from the box. I'm not going to be able to pick this up. But Smoky Blue is our original Oregon Blue, which was started production in the 50s. It was one of the first innovations when David started playing around with differentiating our blue cheese line. realized really nobody had smoked a blue cheese out there. And he started tinkering around with the native woods here. We have a lot of madrone, manzanita grows, alder grows. So he started with our native trees and built a little smoker and started smoking Oregon Blue, and realized that, man, this really isn't very good. And I understand why nobody smokes blue cheese these days. But it was a local chef who said, hey, try what I do. I smoke salmon on hazelnut shells. Now, Oregon is the leading producer of hazelnuts, I believe, in the whole world. I think we produce about 25% of the world's hazelnuts. They call them filberts out here, but hazelnut shells is what goes into the smoker. So once again, we're turning to the place where we come from, and trying to share that with you. Really is to say, hey, we got this great Oregon milk from these wonderful cows, and the hazelnuts grow here. Let's smoke the shells and treat the cheese. So please try this, see what you guys think. This is the one that got my mother in her mid-70s to even put blue cheese in her mouth. She hated blue cheese. She tried this, and now she's hooked. I send it to her all the time.
Yeah, it's super delicious. In our shop, this thing sells like hotcakes because the smoke isn't overwhelming. It's a perfect touch. It's like a great brisket. It's got a great personality to it.
There's a little bit of bacony, a little bit of campfire. And if anybody's doing anything on the barbecue, this is unbelievable on a steak after it comes off the grill, a piece of salmon, grilled vegetables.
Steak is my favorite too, Tom. I love it.
I love it. Yeah. We make a little thick, like, it's a dip or a dressing that we do in the shop for locals. And we use Smoky Blue. And then we have a dehydrated blue cheese powder that we sell. I don't know if Antonelli's carries it. It's called Blue Heaven. Just like you would have a shaky thing of Parmesan, it's blue cheese. So we have a really nice sort of mayo, sour cream, seasoned dip that we do with Smoky Blue in the powder. Really nice. Smoky has tons of applications. One of the weirdest and most wonderful grilled cheese I ever had was Smoky Blue and Nutella.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
It's messy, but it's good.
But it's good. Who wouldn't like that? Chocolate and blue cheese go so good together, which we'll taste at the very end here in Austin.
Typically, if we were going to do a straight up tasting, I would tend to put smoky toward the end, if not last, because that smoke flavor is big. But since we're having a party and not doing really strict pairings, you can cleanse your palate with whatever you're drinking, or maybe one of these little pickles. And let's move on to Caveman. This is a much sturdier blue. Here's my piece. There's that rind we're talking about. And the Caveman, I don't have the logo with me right now, but there's a Fred Flintstone looking Caveman that has been with our company since the very early days. And the city where the farm is, Zach is up in Grants Pass, Oregon, about 30 miles north of us. And the city of Grants Pass has adopted the Caveman as their municipal mascot. So there's the Caveman. There's Caveman. All right, you got a Caveman.
That's right. I did a
Look at him.
Do you see that?
These are
Did you get a good view?
Yeah, that was great.
Awesome. Yeah, it was great.
So these are the names here where you would see the Caveman RV dealership, the Caveman Plumbing Company, and like similarly the Rogue Creamery. Everything's named for the river. So we have the Rogue Credit Union, the Rogue Disposal Company comes to take the trash away. It's Rogue everything here. So similarly, the Caveman name has been with us for a long time because of our connection with Grants Pass. So when we started the natural rind in a special cave, we just said, well, that's got to be the name. This is one of my favorites. It's a lower moisture. It is going to be a little bit breakable, not as spreadable. John, you know Max McCalman, who says you don't spread cheese, you put it on a cracker. It's not peanut butter. This is definitely one of those cheeses you can slice. I love this by itself. I love this with fresh strawberries. I think you guys might have a strawberry jam over there.
It's a cherry Cabernet jelly.
Cherry Cabernet. I like this with something sweet. We've got a cranberry and fig jam with Merlot.
It's so good.
Man.
This, I often get like hints of vanilla coming through on this. The texture is very fudgy, which I think is a spectacular texture in a blue cheese. You've got it almost bites back. But what's really pleasant is that it's not like a spicy blue. It's very creamy, and that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, and because we're aging, so the smoky, and we have another, when we get to the cheese shop, you'll see how many blue cheeses we make there. I think I had 8, maybe 9 in the case. Caveman, and we do a little mini 1-pound Caveman called Tolman. Those two age in their own room. The rest of them are actually dipped in wax for aging, which keeps the moisture inside and allows the mold to develop at a slower pace. So if you see a straight line, just to talk a little bit about blue cheese making, this is what we call a vein, and this is what we call a cave, right? So when the cheese is young, right after we dehoop it and let it rest and do that salt flip, then about 5 or 6 days on, it's really, really nice and sturdy. And we'll put it on a machine that has needles. So the cheese comes in and the needles press down and just make little chimneys. They just pierce the wheel, and then the cheesemaker flips it over, it pierces again, and you've created these lines. So the thing about blue is the mold is sitting there in the milk from the beginning. We add the mold to the milk.
You get a little.
But mold, I got a little spicy jelly in my throat there. So mold needs oxygen. It does not need light. It's not a plant. It just needs water and air. And so in fluid milk and in the preliminary cheese, it's deprived of oxygen. As soon as we pierce it, air rushes in, and that mold begins to reproduce and establish itself. And then it will, over months, find little pockets, little weak spots between the curds where it can make a little cave and continue reproducing. And we're balancing how much mold we want. We want it to establish itself. We don't want it to not be blue, but we don't want it to take over either. So that's managed with a paraffin that gives us some climate control. And that's been done since the old days at the Creamery. When we do Caveman, we don't do that. We put it in its own room, and there's some more evaporation because it's not protected. So it's gonna lose moisture into the environment. And with that, we get increased mineral flavor, saltiness. There isn't more salt in it, but it might taste saltier because the things that don't evaporate all of a sudden take up a bigger percentage of what's present. So the Caveman tends toward the earthy, salty, mineral profile rather than the sweet, buttery, creamy profile. And
it's tasting amazing here in Austin.
I love this cheese. Absolutely, hands down.
And the rind was nice and dry. It wasn't wet from transport. It came out perfect. I'm going to play the video of the cheese shop if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that, and we'll come back for Rogue River. And
yeah, just make everybody sweat a little bit more on that Rogue River, y'all. That Rogue River, the last cheese on our plate, is the world's best cheese. And we are going to crush it. We're going to have a great time eating it in just a minute. But I've got 2 quick videos to share. I know Tom is particularly proud of the next 2. So this is his baby.
Well, there's a non-COVID shot of our little factory store. So we've adjusted our operations, as I know Antonelli has as well. Just last week, we started allowing shoppers in one by one. And I don't know where the picture with the broom came from, but that's what it looks like on a normal day when there's chairs and seating outside. We don't have that option right now.
All of the planters are old milking equipment.
Yeah, here we go. So there's a cheese press, wash station, I think, with the shelf. There's the iconic truck. And pause here, John. So this is a 1948 Dodge that everybody takes selfies in front of. And if you can see behind the truck in the shadow there are two doorways. They're about 3 foot square.
I'll get a better.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So those two doors are interesting. Those are the side of what was then the cooler. The one on the right is still our walk-in. So those doors are where the Iceman would deliver the 2 foot square blocks of ice. Massively heavy job. So put yourself in 1933, Southern Oregon. It's the American Depression. And this factory is the only real refrigerator in town. People had not, it was not common to have a household refrigerator, and it would be an ice box back then anyway. So people had lockers at the Creamery. The Iceman would come probably a couple times a day and get the room cold. And then the citizens were going to come in with vouchers, government vouchers for butter, cottage cheese, and cheddar, bright orange cheddar too. So those are the Iceman doors, and there's a little plaque next to it explaining that for visitors. We have a few signs around to show, kind of give you an idea what we're up to. We haven't thrown much away over the years, so you'll see cheese hoops, and you'll see cheddar presses, and you'll see farm sinks, all repurposed for decorative planting right now. And there's the old front of the Creamery, and our cow logo is inspired by this cow over the front door. Right there she is, Nellie, coming up.
Oh, they skipped it.
Oh, did we miss it?
It was a really hot second there.
There it is. There it is.
I'll get
it. That cow was over the door when David bought the Creamery, and he said, "What is this? This will be our mascot." That cow was painted in the 1950s by a local high school student, and the owner of the Creamery gave him a car. And that's how that cow logo came to be. And then we'll see a mural that was printed, that was painted similarly, I'm going to say late 40s, early 50s, back when the two products were, well, it's going to be at least 1955 because the Oregon Blue is there. So there's the Rogue River, the Valley, the Cheddar, the Blue, and this mural has been on the front of our building for 60 years. You also notice during COVID that we have our phone number on the windows so you can call in your pickup order. No tables, and then our big Corona task force. There's one of our waiting benches. Oh, that's a culture vat. So that's a very small vat where you might save the whey from one day and let that bacteria multiply and give you the beginnings of tomorrow's cheese. It is now a planter. The picnic table there with the umbrella was where our pickups happen when people call in a phone order. And here's the sign you see when you walk into the store, just to reassure you that you're in good hands. And this is the whole facility. So, and this was taken a little while ago because, oh yeah, this is interesting. So when you saw the planter and where the truck was parked is now, see those two parking places in front of the store there, John, right there? Yeah. So this is before we had a sidewalk. So the city remodeled, our road is Highway 99. You see that car is headed south there. That's Highway 99, which is like, you know, the old US highway before there was an interstate. And they did a pedestrian and bicycle upgrade to that, and we got sidewalks. And so all the plants along the front of the factory are gone, and the facade looks completely different. There are no awnings there. If you notice the awnings around the cheese shop, those are all, on the previous shot, John. If you back up a little bit. I forgot how old that aerial was. So those awnings right there, that's all the roof of the barn when we tore apart the farm to get it ready for Zach. We brought all the roofing panels down and made the awning and the fence around the Creamery space now.
Yeah, it was an old barn, and now we even also have them recycled here at our cheese shop or our farm stand out here in Grants Pass.
Right. So go back to the aerial shot a little bit, John. because you'll see. Okay, so here's kind of the flow. The cheese shop is right in front of where the blue truck was. That's now the cheese shop. Yep. And there's a door there that didn't used to be there. That's where next to the truck, you see those two windows? Okay, that's where the door is that I had that orange sign on. And this whole courtyard has been made since then. But if you go to the upper left, John, you see the shed that has a hole cut in it right there? Okay, that we cut a hole in that shed for the truck to drive through. Go to your left a little bit. There. So the truck comes through there and drives under the canopy behind the creamery. Keep coming right there. Okay, that's milk receiving. And everything you see on top is solar panels. We draw about 30% of our power through solar. So the truck will roll in there. The tanker you see to the left right now would be a whey tanker for hauling off whey. That's one of our trucks. But a milk delivery truck will come in, and anytime you see milk on the highway, you're seeing unpasteurized raw milk. Pasteurization happens at the bottling plant, the ice cream plant, the butter factory, the cheese maker. They're in charge of pasteurizing. So the truck will roll in. Our milk receiver will immediately take a sample. He's got a little lab in the back of that building. He's going to instantly get a reading on that milk on whether it's safe. If it's acceptable, he will receive the load. And then it will either maybe go to the silo. John, just to the right of your pointer is a white silo. We can hold milk for up to 48 hours. And that's so that can be a place to hold milk if we need to. Behind that silo is where the pasteurization would happen. We currently pasteurize all of our cheese except the one called Gorgonzola, which is just a classic blue that we've decided to continue making with unpasteurized milk. But pasteurization for our flavor profile has been successful. We don't lose a lot of flavor. We're not killing every little microbe in the milk by pasteurizing. So we're very gentle, and we've been able to pull it off, which is better for a lot of our customers. And then what happens after that, once the tanker's empty, we will clean it. It's our job to make sure that tanker is ready to receive milk on its next stop, and we're on the hook for it. So that receiver is going to be in charge of cleaning that tank, making sure it's absolutely sanitized and ready for the next load of milk, which may be at a different farm entirely. Zach is about 30 miles as the crow flies north of us, and he has a holding tank there. So he's going to produce milk every single day, and we drive it down to our farm every other day. And so the building you see where the cheese shop is, that's above the truck, that building we call Cheddar. And when you were in the cheese shop after this, you'll see that you can see the cheddar make room from our store, which is pretty cool. When they're making curds, and then they're going to bring us curds, and we're going to sell them right away to people that have been watching cheesemakers. It's pretty fun. And then this smaller building on the bottom of the screen is the building we call Blue. And the back part of that building is going to be the two make rooms. One make room with two vats in it. And then the rest of that is aging. So that's the 3 aging rooms in there. And then once the cheeses will spend at least 60 days, if not 90, typically in Blue, aging and getting all those blue developments. And then we're going to start tasting them, and they might be moved to a different facility for middle unfinished packaging. Here's some awards, which we all put in the shop. This is the one we just got from Whole Foods as Supplier of the Year. That's pretty exciting. And there's the big one, World Champion Cheese. There it is. We got a lot. These are the specialty food awards. Some of these are really nice because we might get it for a packaging line, something other than just making cheese. 100 best green companies to work for in Oregon. We've been on that list for, oh gosh, as long as they've been doing it. And that's a really neat award. They poll the Oregon businesses and have the employees talk about how they're treated and what their workplace is like on a human level. And and we've always scored very well. There's a wonderful, nice shot of David offering to bearded David. And here's our team. There we go. We're about 45 people total. This is how many were there that day for a team picture. We try to take a team picture every couple of years. And this is, once again, right in front of the shop. Oh, that was the end. We didn't go inside. All right, let's.
Well, now we have the Rogue tasting. Do you want to?
Yeah, let's taste Rogue River, and then we'll show you the shop and be done with it.
Real quick, I know we wanted to see Cal's live. We got like 2 seconds to flip the camera and see Cal's live.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you make me? There we go. Here we go.
There they are, beauties.
Dinner time.
Awesome.
And so then the cool part is about our barn, this is actually backwards, but when you have your selfie camera on, you can take a selfie in the barn and it shows the Rogue Creamery.
That's awesome.
And then of course, one of my favorites right there, Zinga. Oh, and there's Nelly. And then Gigi. She's a whiner.
That's
Back
awesome.
to Rogue River Blue.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Okay.
All right. So Tom, should I play while you talk about it?
I think you should play the Rogue River. So everybody, this is the one wrapped in leaves.
Well, on
And-
our plate, Tom, my team had taken the leaves off to prep all of the pieces.
What?
It's all right.
Eat the leaves. We eat the leaves. Okay, so this cheese is wrapped in Syrah grape leaves from a local vineyard here called Cowhorn Vineyard. Fantastic biodynamic winemakers making Rhone-style wines. And you see, it takes about 6 leaves to wrap this cheese. So Rogue River Blue takes, there's Kathy Strange holding up the big award in Italy in October. This cheese starts its life in the fall. So as Zach was mentioning, we have a really dry summer. In June, we'll go out and pick leaves at the vineyard. Here we are on a Syrah block at Cowhorn, and we'll pick 60 to 70,000 leaves in late June. We work really closely with the winemakers. They tell us, we know how big we need the leaves to be. They tell us where to go, how high to go. We're not allowed to take a leaf that's covering a cluster of grapes and giving it shade. But we pick 60 or 70,000 leaves every summer, and it's the packaging department. It's anybody from the Creamery that wants to get up at 5 in the morning and volunteer to come help. There's David in the leaves. And then if somebody like John Antonelli and Kendall were to come visit, we'd make them get up and pick leaves with us too. And then when we get back, what we're gonna do is we make a very high alcohol, neutral grain spirit, and we infuse it with organic pear puree. Because again, we're in Oregon where the pears grow. That's one of our hugest industries, pear. And so in order to clean the leaves and impart a great local flavor, we have a high alcohol spirit that we make. And the leaves that we picked last summer have been soaking this whole year. Now, the cheese itself is a blue cheese that we make starting in September. After the drought's over, we get a second rain and we get a second generation of pasture. And the cows get one more good shot at grass. So it's a change after the equinox that we really mark the beginning of Rogue River Blue. And we will make as much of the Rogue River as we can possibly make until the season ends around Christmas time. We only use the milk from Rogue Creamery Dairy. So Rogue River Blue is made for about 3 months in the fall, and then the aging begins. And those first batches that we made will be starting to be tasted in January or February, and will be scored. So every blue cheese lot that we release, various team members from every department come in and they taste the cheese and we evaluate it. If it scores 7, 8, 9, 10, well, 7, 8, 9, we say it's ready to go. We'll move it on to finished goods, get it packaged and get it out to stores. If it doesn't score as well, we typically will put it back and look at it in another couple weeks or a couple months. And typically they come around and hit their stride. It's just very handmade, very seat of the pants, and they're all unique. There is no formula. There's no light that goes on and says it's ready now or you're finished. So when it scores 9s and 10s, we're going to say, okay, let's flag this for competition. And we also say, is this a candidate for Rogue River Blue? So if it's a candidate for Rogue River Blue, it will begin a different journey, being exposed to different microbes in the aging process, and it will go down its road to become Rogue River Blue and be wrapped in leaves the following summer. So right after the picking happens, we start wrapping. And again, every wheel of this cheese is wrapped by hand by a person in leaves and tied up with raffia so everything stays in place. And then we're gonna cryovac it. We shrink wrap it, and that just takes oxygen out of the equation and lets those flavors just focus and concentrate through July and August. And then right around that equinox, about a year after we started production, is when we release Rogue River Blue, and you'll see the 2020 Rogue River at Antonelli's in mid-September this year, probably right after Labor Day. You guys will be putting it on the shelf, and that'll be the 2020 Rogue River Blue, which is what we made, which is what is aging right now. So this is 2019 Rogue River Blue. It was made in the fall of 2018. I'm going to put some right here in my mouth.
Yes, if you haven't eaten it yet, you should all eat it. This is the first time I'm eating this cheese in a month that is not September through December. The team at Rogue, they had to go and find a special couple of wheels hidden away just for this event. It took us a couple weeks to get it, but that was chaos.
I think mine was better than the last. It was wonderful. I haven't had it so long though. I'm not sure.
Exactly. I can't tell you. I can't compare it. I haven't had it since December. It is a wonderful cheese. It's got great texture to it, great flavor. So this came from the family of cheese that won best cheese in the world.
Just so you see kind of the presentation, we definitely recommend serving it with the leaves on it. They're actually pretty tasty. I will often just eat the leaf. It's chewy, but you know, it's like a stuffed grape leaf, dolmas.
Yeah,
I definitely recommend when you guys get it, sell it. All you do is score the leaf with a serrated knife, and then you can get a wire through there. It makes a nice presentation.
I think we always do that. I think for the 150 1-ounce pieces that we cut, my team.
Sanity over.
Sanity over. Perfect. Yeah, but guys, what a special moment. As I said, just receiving this box of cheese this week, my team went bonkers, just with excitement for what it means to have a partner like Rogue Creamery that makes. I did another costume change. It's awesome.
Nice. There's your Jefferson logo.
Yeah, isn't it nice? Not just a state of mind. But having a partner.
You bought shirts, man. That was awesome.
I've got 6 more. I just haven't been able to choose as much. It's awesome.
You know, one thing I would like to say about Rogue River too is the amount of work that goes into this cheese. And if you've purchased it, you know, it's my sister just when she got some last fall paid $60 a pound in Madison, Wisconsin for Rogue River Blue. We sell it for $44 a pound at the factory. The amount of labor that's involved in making this cheese and the amount of time it takes to make this cheese, if it had not won best cheese in America twice, best American cheese more than once, and now finally best cheese in the world, the reaction to this cheese is so extraordinary. We can't not make it, but from a business point of view, it is a ridiculous product to make, and we should never do it, but we won't stop.
Yes, and we will continue to sell as much as you make because we take it home mostly as cheap.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
And just to give you kind of a sense of what it is, 60,000 grape leaves. We make about 10,000 5-pound wheels of this every year for the whole world. And that's it. So that's where the seasonality comes from. It's never going to be a cheese that you can just always buy. There are cheese shops who will overbuy and store it and release it later and try to have it in stock at other times a year, and that's fine. It ages very well. We have tasted 2017 and 2018 and 2016. They're all delicious, they're all different, and they're all safe. So one of the advantages in Oregon here is that if we do run out of the current vintage of Rogue River, we can generally go to the vault and pull some from an earlier year, and it's still delicious.
That's awesome. I know on your website last week you were selling a tasting of 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 batches.
Yeah, the vertical, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We didn't have enough to do it forever, but those who got it should enjoy.
Well, so we got the one more video. I guess those of you that the couch is calling, it misses you, and you need to get back to the watching Netflix. Thanks for being so patient with us and hanging out with us. This is one of the coolest experiences I've ever gotten to have. I got to visit Rogue in 2016, but my kids were at an age where they yelled and screamed the whole time. I didn't get this much, even on the tours, I didn't get to see all this stuff. But we do have one more video that I want to play. Tom, I know that it's an important one because it talks about basically the values of the business. And I just think Rogue is such an outstanding company and an inspiration for all of us in the industry. All of us that, where you spend your money says a lot about you. And what you guys do is just at the top of the game. It's clear why you won best cheese in the world. You also should win best company in the world. And so I want to play this. I'll do the share screen so that folks can see it.
I mean, really, this is kind of a vote with your fork, just to see when you buy a piece of Rogue Creamery cheese, your dollars are going in a lot of different directions. We do a lot with our money before anybody gets to the bottom line.
I just want to jump in real quick and say thank you. I actually have something I need to go deal with, so I'm going to hop off of here. Thank you, John. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for your
Zach.
questions. And I'm going to hop out now. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about a certified B Corp. I think whenever you see that, support a B Corp. It's a fantastic commitment to your organization, the environment, your customers, your community, and you'll see B Corps out there. Patagonia is probably the poster child for B Corps, but you'll be surprised at how many B Corps there are. There's thousands of them, and they're all using business as a force for good.
I almost ate all the Rogue River Blue without sharing some with Kendall. That would have been a terrible.
Oh yeah, you'd have been sitting on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. Here you go.
Yeah, so we're doing pretty well. It's a 200-point score, so we're at 136.6, which is quite high. Passing is 80. So we're audited every 3 years, and it is one of the most challenging audits that we go through, because you see governance, workers, community, and environment. Those are the 4 big overarching categories. And then organic, it's a commitment we made when we started the farm. It's a way to differentiate ourselves at the cheese counter. There's the solids that we were talking about. When Zach was talking about the bedding for the cows, that's amazing stuff. That's the manure solids, and they compost them. The temperature in the compost pile gets over 200 degrees, and it's absolutely sterilized. And they can use it under the cows as a soft place. So they're not fouling up sand or sawdust or anything. And there's some Holsteins. We can skip ahead a little bit. I'm not sure where, yeah, there's the best green. So I talked briefly about that. That's one where our employees are rating their own company. And the animal welfare Validus is the certification agency that Zach mentioned that keeps an eye on the animal experience from the humane point of view.
Well,
So thanks everybody for your interest in what we do. I can't tell you enough how it's just great to flip through and see so many faces so far away, and just know that you guys are enjoying our cheese, and we can't thank you enough for going down to Antonelli's and choosing it.
Tom, this was awesome. Amazing feedback. You're a certified cheese professional. You know your stuff. You're also deeply passionate about business. And I just love the experience. And I don't know if you were watching my video, but my eyes were huge tonight. Just such a cool experience. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your Saturday night to hang out with us. I can't, it's a very unique time in life. And this is our social experience, right? This is us coming together over some milk's great leap towards immortality, right? Like, this is amazing what we're getting to do and what we're getting to see. Thank you so much. Tom, do you have anything last to say before we say goodnight?
I just want to congratulate you and Kendall on doing such an amazing job with these. I've been peeking in on a few of them just to understand what you're up to, and now that I know the amount of work that goes into making just one, you guys are just killing it. Thank you for including us, and thanks for being our champions out there, man. Thanks to everybody that signed up.
Yeah, thank you to all of you. You guys are amazing, and thanks for hunting down that Rogue River Blue for us. Everybody,
once this is all over, come visit us.
Heck yes. First destination. Good night, y'all. Thank you.
Good night.